Hello and welcome to this yet another episode and podcast where I'm in conversation with Prateek Rastogi, co-founder and CEO of Better Nutrition. He's responsible for making rice, raga, your everyday millets to nutrition powerhouses. He's backed by Shark Tank's Navita Thapar as well as PV Sindhu, beautiful investors there. And the company's been in the business for a while. And let's hear it right from and dive right into this podcast. Hi, Prateek. How are you doing?
Very well, Divijot. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure for giving us your time. Thank you very much for that. Let's dive right into the conversation on understanding and how your company is delivering great, how UP's nutrition story and, weave that little angle of Uttar Pradesh's ecosystem and how has that helped your company. Give a little brief on your, journey.
Right. So, Divijot, let me give you a little bit of a background and history about Indian agriculture. Since the Green Revolution in the 1960s, India went into a drive where we wanted to produce more. So more volume, more yield. And of course, UP being the hinterland of agriculture, we also got into that race. Today, UP is one of the largest agriculture producing states and contributes meaningfully to the overall production of the country. But where we are lacking is that our grains are not giving us enough nutrients.
Right.
So when we test, we see that the typical zinc value, the iron value, the calcium value, that's declined significantly over this last few years. And now there is a need that our farmers can actually start farming for these nutrients into the farmlands.
Right.
And there are techniques available. So usage of biofortified seeds, better soil practices, proper testing, it can actually enable the farmers to become entrepreneurs.
Right.
And create these nutrients into the farmlands and thereby create food which is in line with what the urban consumer needs. And farmers in UP are now adopting this and they're also earning premiums for creating this nutrition dense value-added produce.
Right. How did you get this idea of nutrition better UP? I mean, what made you think about this? How is UP's farmer different from the ones which are in other states?
Right. So a couple of things. One, if you look at India's numbers, then we are significantly, faring really bad in terms of what is the kind of nutrition that our population eats. We are almost 105th on the global hunger index, despite years of progress, growth, independence now.
Right.
And things like iron deficiency, zinc deficiency, anemia, these are real challenges for the people. And the source of all of that is what farmers do, what farmers produce.
Right.
But still, if you see, not much has been done around this, and India continues to struggle. Every year, we lose nearly around $12 billion in GDP value just because of this nutrient deficiencies that we have in it. That's a massive number to solve for.
Absolutely.
So I was moved because of these things, and hailing from a small town of Uttar Pradesh, I hail from Sitapur. I thought, why don't I give up my job? Why don't I go back? Why don't I try to improve things for the farmers as well as for the consumers, for both of them. And then UP became quite a deliberate choice for us because what we realized was that unlike maybe the farmers of Punjab, Haryana, UP's farmers are far more adaptive, they are far more progressive, they're open to changes in adopting new seeds, new soil, new soil practices, and newer formats of farming, which is not the case in a Punjab or Haryana because things are already quite mature there, farmers have a lot of knowledge and they're used to certain kinds of practices.
Right.
But unlike that, UP's farmers are really adaptive to new change, which is what we wanted as a company which is trying to bring around a change and innovation.
That's very much fair. So, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that India now goes on to the $5 trillion mark, wherein this is the milestone which the Honorable Prime Minister puts in front. And our Honorable Chief Minister, with his visionary leadership, wants UP to now become the $1 trillion economy. And UP's ecosystem for startups, because of course you've been fairly new in 2017 where you established the corporation, the company there. So how has UP's ecosystem helped you in scaling up? Because for a startup, it's there are a lot of other things that you've got to do at the end of the day. I mean, you're the main source powerhouse. We call the cells mitochondria that you are. So how do you frame yourself? What all UP's helped you with?
Right. So definitely for any company that's into agribusiness, food, UP is a great space because it's the land of farmers. We are very well connected to, at the present we are connected to like more than 40 districts.
Right.
We work with nearly a network of 25,000 farmers and we are able to get quality produce made along with them. So that's there. Along with that, I think UP's ecosystem At least the startup policy has been quite helpful. It's quite, the vision is really grand. We are a part of UP government's cohort, which they're of selected startups.
Yep.
So they run about, I think, 20 startups now. There are agri startups, and they have guidance, support, mentoring with World Bank and IFC, and we are a part of that. That means we get a direct access with the senior bureaucrats of Uttar Pradesh. We get any kind of, let's say, support at the policy level if we want that, or let's say FPO partnerships. Whatever we want, we have a space where we can have a dialogue with the bureaucracy.
Right.
And some of those things have been simplified for startups like us.
Talking about the infrastructure, and you just spoke about the connect, the logistical part.
Yeah.
Uttar Pradesh has, we proudly call ourselves as the UP's, the Expressway Pradesh. It's like one of the best, the maximum number of expressways, go through here. The biggest rail network we have. Air connectivity, the maximum number of airports that we have.
Right.
Jewar, after that comes in, the cargo is going to be one of the biggest in India for that matter.
Right.
How's your experience in the terms of ecosystem of connectivity when you say, and about skilling manpower? Because both of the things go hand in hand.
Right.
For you to make your product reach in different districts, as you said, is one of the things that you do from the infrastructure assistance. How about connectivity on the skill? How do you hire that skilled manpower for
Right. So let's talk about the infrastructure first. Honestly, we really like the idea and how it is coming up, that almost all major cities of the state, whether it is a Gorakhpur, a Banaras, a Kanpur, we are all very connected to Lucknow, and we have good expressways.
Right.
Our farmer network spans this entire area right in the borders of Bihar, and because of this great road connectivity, this procurement of agricultural commodities and then bringing them to centralized processing hubs here in Lucknow, thereby processing it into flour, rice, and taking them to the rest of India is a much easier job. So honestly, we don't face any challenges there. And as far as the second leg of logistics is concerned, we have partnerships with national level logistics companies like eCart, Delivery, which is again working here, picking up the produce and supplying to more than 300 plus cities in the country. So can you imagine that our startup, which is of course a young enterprise, we are here and we don't find any of these problems in sourcing the produce from nearly 20 plus districts and supplying to nearly 300 plus cities already. And it's all happening maybe out of just one warehouse that we maintain here.
Wow, that's actually phenomenal, to be really honest. Let's talk a little bit about food nutrition in Uttar Pradesh, dedicatedly. And then also let's draw the conversation towards, why Uttar Pradesh, as in, because of course, the network of farmers is one of the things. But what are the other aspects which you would like to draw and bring to the table?
Of course, I mean, the earlier question was around people.
Yep.
I believe that that is, it is the backbone of any organization.
Okay.
And that is what makes or breaks startups and team their successes. I think we are quite at an advantage really, and not at a disadvantage when it comes to people and manpower. That's because one, the talent that is available here is almost at 30 to 50% in a better competitive price as compared to that of metros, take us to Bangalore or Delhi or Mumbai. So that's something that of course a startup needs in its early days.
Correct.
The second most important thing is that if you're a good startup here, then you'll be able to retain your employees very well, because there aren't so many options for. It's not that competitive yet. Correct. Really. It's not like a Bangalore where there's so many startups. Right. If you're a good startup here initially, you have the ability to retain the talent, which is of course a big thing for a startup when it's building their early teams. So these are both good things. And the other thing that I believe is that this is an excellent, not just talent, all other costs in general are good. The infrastructure overall is great. So when you're building the startup, when you're just doing the product market fit, you want the costs to be low. You want it to be economical so that you can survive that initial period. So those are some of the advantages which a state like UP and a city like Lucknow offers. It's an excellent bedrock for testing new ideas before you really want to scale them.
And to add to that, 56% of the demographics, which is youth and population in Uttar Pradesh, is under the working age. So, there's a lot of talent that you get. We've got II in Lucknow, IIT Kanpur, respectively. So those institutes create the best of the minds, and then that gets popular.
IIT BHU.
Of course. So moving on, what is that one food that you think people feel is highly nutritious, but it's not? Like just on that lighter note.
You'll be surprised to know so many people eat, for example, a multi-grain atta, and I am surprised
that.
you eat that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to see, if you go on Amazon, you'll see so many brands that are selling a 9-grain variant, an 11-grain variant. People feel that if there are so many grains together, it's probably nutritious for them, but that is not properly correct. Because what happens is that when you mix too many grains together, then all of these grains have a different digestion rate, and your body cannot absorb all of it. So it digests only what has an early digestion, and the rest of it will lead to bloating into your stomach. So therefore, the best practice is that we eat staples like atta, rice, millets. We should eat a combination of this, but we should definitely be eating one grain at a time as compared to mixing so many grains and then eating it into our body.
Well, it's a lot of light that you draw to my digestion, to be really honest. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast would probably be getting that as well. I'm sure you've been doing a lot of testing of the, making them nutrition powerhouses for these grains. What is that one thing that you realized while you were testing all of this? What's that?
So you'll be surprised to know this. The same variety of, let's say, a wheat crop grown in a similar area with two different sets of farmers can have a drastically different nutrient profile.
Wow.
So the iron levels and zinc levels could be low and one could be high, because ultimately it is also a factor of what is the nutrient concentration in the soil. So how it works is the same nutrients that are in the soil, they get transformed into food, and when we eat it, it comes into our body.
Right.
But if the soil doesn't have it, then the grain is not able to capture it and doesn't come to our body. So what happens is that when brands sell to people, they always have a static nutritional table at the back of the packet. And consumers are tuned to thinking that, what is written is exactly what I'm getting.
Right.
But now is the time when we need to change to a more dynamic form of nutrition information. That is what we're trying to achieve with the Better Nutrition brand, trying to give a QR code based dynamic nutritional reports. Because every farmer, every different variety of the crop, every different soil structure can have a totally different nutrition profile for the ultimate food that you're eating.
Does food really need that level of innovation? I mean, does that, whatever we get on the plate, does that require that level of innovation?
See, India is an agrarian country. We are all very heavily dependent upon staples for the food, right? Simultaneously, we have huge problems of nutritional deficiency, anemia, immunity. So much of the burden of healthcare is now rising, right? We always look at food from the viewpoint of filling our stomachs, filling our belly. It is a means to satisfy our hunger.
True.
But scientists' data tells us that there is a body's need of hidden hunger, which is, after it has filled our hunger, the body still needs, micronutrients, elements, minerals out of it. That is something which is not getting met. So now, in 1960s, we had the first green revolution, which was about farming more. Now there's a time for the next green revolution, which is about farming better. And that farming better is from few angles. The most important thing right now is farming for more nutrients.
Right.
Because in the world, we are seeing that there is an advent of all kinds of supplements, nutraceuticals, all kinds of pills, powders. There's so many brands right now. But all of those companies may be winning, but the farmers are still creating something which is old, a commodity. But if the farmers can create this nutrition-dense produce, not only do the consumers benefit, but the farmers also become entrepreneurs and they benefit from it.
Correct.
That's how you take the entire country together ahead.
Right. What's your take on organic food? I mean, a lot of people now have been talking about organic food, organic vegetables. How do you, procure food? Where's my food coming from? There's a lot of boo hockey around that as well. A lot of people question that now with Instagram and newer technologies coming in, with AI coming in, Google Lenses. So I'd like to know where my food is coming. So what's your take on, organic food?
See, every food innovation is always a factor of what is the larger looming health crisis in the country. Okay, a couple of decades ago, this problem around, let's say, too much toxins getting into the food is, of course, it was a big problem. It still is. And therefore, the wave of organic foods came in. But organic is always talking about what is the omission in the food. So omission of pesticides, toxins, that's what organic gives us. Helpful, definitely. But there is still a bigger problem to solve, which is about nutrition deficiency in food, which is something that now scientists have developed biofortified crops. And beyond just removal of toxins, there can be an actual addition of more nutrients into the food. So now biofortified foods have both of these advantages brought in, and it's high time that all private companies into food and into agri-tech, they begin to take this shift as well because it's much needed for the country.
Yeah, in addition to that, 240 million in number. 24 करोड़ का एक मार्केट है उत्तर प्रदेश में कंपनीज के लिए, for food processing companies, for companies that can be, we can handhold them, the government can then go ahead and, assist them. The ecosystem is so much better now. What's your take on the ecosystem of the government's perspective, the bureaucracy, how they helped you in making your ease of doing business? That's what we call about. And UP is really, ranked in higher now on the ease of doing business. A lot of people now a lot of states are now looking at UP as the benchmark of their policies, because our policies are phenomenal, if you talk about, we're the only state that has a foreign direct investment policy. There's no other state that has a separate FDI policy. We invite companies across the world. UP is now participating in World Economic Forum. We've got trade desks, we've got country desks. A lot of work is happening around. So what's your take on that ecosystem? How's the government assisted you for your startup?
No, I believe all the visions are absolutely grand, and it all makes sense. As I said, we have been parts of UP government's selected channels for progressing agri startups. Right. We have got grant and aid from the State Agriculture Ministry, from the Central Agriculture Ministry as well. So there is definitely good support. There are various other incentives which we may not be availing, but there are for, let's say, any processing facilities that you are setting up. So great incentives there. Multiple things for ease of doing business. For example, they just recently the Lucknow-Kanpur expressway is about to be launched, and we know that as a startup based in Lucknow, it's going to help us attract more talent from some of the other cities that are coming there. Of course, there's a lot of focus on better education, and which means again that's good talent. These are few things that startups needs, right? It's capital, education, talent, infrastructure, which I think is all available in abundance. One more interesting thing that we find here is that because of all of this new development and the new branding which the Chief Minister is now able to bring, we are now seeing many people who are in this ghar wapsi kind of who are wanting to come back from metros and wanting to settle back here, and we often find these people who want to work with us, and that's a very strong partnership with all of this talent, which is actually now it's a big advantage for us, and that's become the cornerstone of our success in the last few years, because we've been able to attract big talent from bigger MNCs, from metros, and have them work here along with us in Lucknow.
Well, Prateek, I'd really appreciate the fact that, you leaving the job and then coming down and, getting the business, and now you making the state's health and the nutrition value and what we generally eat as staple foods. So on that note, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate the level of inputs that you've given us today. InvestUP will always be there to back you up for that matter. And for anything else as well, we're open for any feedbacks. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate that. This has been an interactive session.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jude.